This is The Gorge. It's a podcast where my friend Sarah and I gorge ourselves on overanalyzing a topic.
The Gorge is brought to you by Patreon. That's patreon.com/thegorge, where for just $2 a month, you gain access to That's Hell You're Walking Into, the reality marble that is my noble phantasm, wherein Ben is trapped in an endless reality with me, forced to learn the ins and outs of the lore of the Fate Stay Night universe. It's really weird. I have yet to determine, a good, it's technically the Fate Stay Night universe, but also it's, the Type Moon universe, but if I call it Fate, that seems really vague. I haven't decided on exactly, what do you call that? And
it's not the Nasuverse, because doesn't that also include, Tsukihime and all that other stuff that is sort of...
Yeah, Karno Kyokai. That's, kind of outside of my wheelhouse.
And Melty Blood? Right? Or is that different?
Yeah. Technically, I know Saber is in Melty Blood, I think. So, I know Shiki is in Melty Blood. Both of the Shikis. Yes. Anyways, we're getting off topic.
Yeah.
Hey, you get that for just $2 a month. And if you want to go up to $5 a month, you get Takeout with Us, which is a monthly series of commentary tracks that we put out. That's patreon.com/thegorge. Thanks.
And Sarah, what are we talking about today, though?
Today, I just punched my mic while doing a fist bump. That's not what we're talking about. Today, we're talking about Alan Wake. Just Alan Wake, not the DLCs, and not American Nightmare, which I think is its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
The game that was rescued from oblivion, the perfect argument for games preservation as a whole. It got put back up on Steam a few years ago, and we were like, hey, let's do some more spooky games. Turns out this game is not that spooky.
It's really not.
But you know what? It's fine.
It's more of a thriller than it is a Silent Hill, but it's still really good. And yeah, it would have sucked if it didn't have the licensed music in it.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. It was wild. At one point, they mentioned Poets of the Fall, which is a band I know. They mentioned that in, the TV, interview that Alan watches of himself. And I was like, oh, I know that band. So, yeah. It's an interesting little game. I liked it. I'm not, in love with it. But I liked it more so, as on a conceptual level.
Yeah. I think...
And... yeah.
I think that, once you realize it's not a horror game,
sure,
you can appreciate it for what it does do with meta narrative, and when you're writing a story about writing a story.
Sure.
And when you're an author writing and your main character is an author.
Yes. This is a game written about basically what if we made a game about Stephen King, but we didn't use Stephen King's weird face?
Yeah, what if we instead used a regular guy's face, and then we also filmed that guy doing live action things.
Extremely. That's a thing Remedy does too, because I know they do it in Control as well, and it's just it's an odd stylistic choice, right?
But it really works here, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was super, watching not Night Vale, what is it? Night
Springs?
Night Springs, yeah, that's it. The Night Springs episodes you get, where you're realize oh, those are live action.
Yeah, they're real actors.
I think that's a super interesting way to utilize different mediums.
Sure, and it definitely it's an interesting flip, because video games are typically a thing displayed on screen, so it is an interesting flip to kind of show the division of world spaces, where the flip is that the real world, in finger quotes, are 3D models, and then the space inside TV spaces is actors, and it's a delineation that shows what you're looking at. It's oh yeah, this is stuff being portrayed through a screen. I think it's very interesting. It's it has a very cool, disconcerting kind of element to it, because like the way actors move, especially in this game, which God love you, Remedy, you tried, but this game, some of these models are kind of rough looking.
The mocap and the facial animations, it's a 360 game, okay?
It's a 360 game that tried to do realistic facial animations.
We weren't at MGS5 yet.
You were, unless you're Naughty Dog, because again, The Last of Us came out on PS3 first, but Remedy is not Naughty Dog.
This came out like around, I think, the same time that we had LA Noire, which was like, oh my god, look at our incredible faces.
Oh, and boy, it has aged extremely poorly. LA Noire has aged significantly worse than this game.
Mm-hmm. Because it used it as a selling point.
It uses it as a selling point. So like the whole thing is that it's like, here, look at all these characters' faces. But boy, they do a lot of, because they're trying to replicate cinematography. That's a tautology, but they're trying to replicate the cinematography that you see very specifically in movies, which means there's a lot of shots of faces. And I'm always like, please don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Please stop doing that. I'm enjoying your game, but like a lot of these facial expressions are really, really weird.
It's got that big DMC3 energy.
Oh, yeah.
Watching Dante eat pizza in the first cutscene.
Boy, did all of those, like, every game except The Last of Us, The Last of Us, every game that came out in that generation has such a weird layer of grime over it, right?
Yeah.
It's inexplicable. It's something that they're doing with the models and like the limitations of texture sizes at the time, but boy, everybody just looks so greasy? Like
not like slick, like shiny, but like,
yeah, it's weird.
Like with, when you get like almost like if you run your hands over like fresh like tar or something, like a newly paved like road, and you get kind of that black smudge.
Tacky. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. It's such a hard thing to articulate, but you look at a game and you go, oh yeah, this came out on 360 for sure. Yeah, 100%. I think, I don't know if this game was made in Unreal 3. It feels like a game that was made in Unreal 3.
But I think before we lose the point, is that I think that like the live action footage is super interesting, and the thing that it reminded me of was that old thing where it's like, if you have like a cartoon or an anime or something, and the characters draw a portrait of themselves.
Oh yeah.
Are they drawing like a photorealistic drawing, or is it anime? Like, are they in universe drawing an anime version of themselves?
Style. Yeah, that's a good question actually. And yeah, it is. I guess to get back to the point I was trying to make ultimately, until I got distracted by how weird these models look, is that because it's such like a discrepancy in like the way like the 3D models act and the way like actual human actors act, it is kind of like weirdly, I don't want to say scary, but just kind of eerie. Which works in this game's favor, because it is ostensibly not a horror game, but certainly a spooky game. So yeah, I think it works. It's a very interesting. Remedy has such an interesting aesthetic sensibility.
This is it's one of the things that like I like thought about was like, this game feels vaguely Japanese.
Do you think? I was playing, that's really funny, because I was playing it like this is an American company trying to make a Japanese game.
Yeah.
We're both wrong, however.
Yeah, they're
because they're in Finland.
Yes, I just looked it up just to make sure.
Yeah.
But but you're right, because this feels like, I don't know, just the way like the direction and some of the narrate, like the dialogue feels vaguely Japanese.
Yeah, definitely the dialogue writing and the extremely spotty voice acting, which again, this game came out in, hold up. Oh yeah, it's 10 years old.
I think everyone sounds fine except for Sheriff Breaker.
Oh, the sheriff sounds god awful.
She's
very
very
bad.
Bubbly.
She's very bubbly and then also just like incredibly wooden at the same time.
Like she was very like chipper, I think, during moments of like serious tension.
And I didn't honestly, I was just like, why is Alice even in this game? Like, why is the wife character even in this game? Because she's such like a nothing entity. But like most of these characters are kind of, they're kind of thin. I was not the only character I genuinely came out of like actually liking, because I'm extremely ambivalent towards Alan as a character. I'm just so whatever. He's protagonist number 745. But Barry rules. Barry's the best character in this game. Oh my god.
I like Barry and
the whole time.
I like Barry, and I also did like Tor and Odin.
Well, yeah, they are inherently cool because they're like 70-year-old ex-heavy metal stars who talk about like being Norse gods and stuff, and it's like, these guys rule.
This is weird. It's a interesting game because like I had a weird sort of attachment to it. Because it's set in Washington, right?
Set in Washington.
Yeah. But the small town, the festival, the Deer Fest, thing, going through the woods at night, being near a lake, was very reminiscent of me going up north with my family to Caseville.
Sure. Yeah.
Very, very big up north, small town energy where they have like a yearly thing and everyone gets super invested in it, and it's not like a big tourist attraction, but like it attracts like people who are not quite local,
And people from the next couple towns over.
Yeah, exactly. Ours was Cheeseburger in Caseville, which is where everyone listens to a lot of Jimmy Buffett and eats cheeseburgers.
You Northerners are inscrutable.
Which, I'll be honest, I did not like Jimmy Buffett growing up, and I still don't really like Jimmy Buffett. That song got super old, super fast, but I do have a lot of good memories of just, going up and there's like grills and stuff outside and booths and whatnot and all that fun stuff. The normal fear of going through the woods at night with a flashlight. But this time there actually are shadow monsters out there trying to kill you.
Yeah, instead of just imagined shadow monsters. And definitely, the woods in Alan Wake have such personality. Like, they are so ominous and so overbearing, especially because this game is set in the Pacific Northwest, where the evergreen trees are massive out there. So you just have this incredible atmosphere when you are out in the woods of just like you feel like the kind of like the woods are like breathing around you, and the shadows are so like dense, and it's when the game is probably like the closest to actually being kind of spooky. But of course this game is bizarrely organized into episodes.
Yeah, like a mini series almost.
Very strange. Again, this is Remedy's like weird aesthetic trappings coming through, where they just like, we're just gonna try and do this, okay. But the deal is that because it's episodes, it's episodic, even though the game was released as just a full game.
Yeah,
it wasn't an episodic release. it's funny because it means that, like, every episode kind of has to have a climax, so every chapter, I suppose, has its own little, set piece. So it's like, well, we can't stay in the spooky woods too long, we gotta move along to the next set piece. It's like, okay. But, yeah! I think that's the thing about this game that is the most baffling to me, is just, like... And, to go back to what we were saying before, about it being, like, a Japanese horror game made by Western developers, is that, like, the tone is so odd. I don't hate it.
I don't either. It's just very...
Just to put that out there, I don't dislike Alan Wake, and I'm not really being down on it, and I don't hate its tone, but I do think its tone is very strange.
It was hard for me to grasp whether this was just like... It's one of those things where I can't grasp if it was intentional or not, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
are they trying to capture, like, a David Lynch kind of feel? Like Twin Peaks?
Are they doing... Are they trying to be David Lynch, or are they trying to be Gareth Mengery?
Who?
You've seen Gareth Mengery's Dark Place?
Oh,
that
yeah.
Adult Swim show?
Yeah, okay.
Like, are they...
Yeah. Okay.
Or no, it's Garth Mengery.
Right.
Sorry, Garth Mengery. But yeah, are they trying to be
Place.
David Lynch, or are they trying to be Garth Mengery? Like, is it supposed to be, like, intentionally kind of corny and, like, oddball characters, or is it supposed to be, like, kind of more played straight, and it just ended up being a little on the goofy side?
Yeah, there's so many, like, weird little things, and the fact that it just very violent, like, you'll be having, like, very kind of moody tonal sequences that swing into loud, bombastic set pieces of shit being thrown at you, and shadow monsters, and oh my god, the asylum. It's not really like an asylum. It's like I don't even know.
A rehab facility?
Like a rehab facility. It doesn't have, like, the trappings of the scary mental asylum that, like, other horror games do, which is great. Thank you. We all hate those.
It was really nice that he's not just, like, you know, there aren't people in straitjackets and stuff. It's just that the guy who runs it is kind of an asshole.
Which is fair. That's how a lot of these kind of places are. But it's not like, ooh, crazy people scary. It's more like, oh, authority figures scary, which, you know, fair. But it's like, you know, you've gone from, like, this kind of quiet, moody tone to loud and bombastic and a lot of overuse of the whole, hold on, I've got to get this door open, or start this helicopter, or turn this thing on. I need you to hold these things off in the meantime.
Weird Left 4 Dead finale things.
Yeah. It's so strange. It's like, the one that really stuck out to me the most was when you're escaping I'm just going to call it the asylum.
Mm-hmm.
When you're escaping the asylum, and Barry is like, he's trying to get the gate open, and I still don't understand. Was he just having a hard time with the key? Or could he not find the key?
Yeah, because
why did it take so long?
He dropped the key and he couldn't find it in the dirt.
And it's like...
Because he has, like, dialogue where he's, like trying to find it, and he picks up something, and he's like, oh, I found it. Oh, wait, no, that's a quarter. Never mind.
Oh, and it's just... It was such, like, an obvious setup to be like, ooh... And especially when you're walking through that hedge maze, which is really... Like, that's part of why I think, like, I'm almost like, it was intentionally supposed to be this way. Because, like... Barry just saying, yeah, you gotta go through the hedge maze. I was like, okay, Remedy. There's a hedge maze?
Go through the video game level.
I need you to go do this Zelda dungeon. It wasn't that hard, but you know what I mean. Like, here's this very video gamey part, and it's like, is it self-aware, or is it just that it was 2010?
I feel like it's a little bit of both. Like,
right.
I mean, the whole thing about this thing is that, like, you know, and I think it is, because for one thing, the story, the game itself actually sets this up, and it says a lot of the contrivances and a lot of the weird things is because Alan is writing the story under duress.
Right.
So a lot of the cut corners and the plot contrivances and the convenient weapons and car locations is because Alan's writing the story.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
And so he's setting things up, and he's like, rebelling where he can by including stuff to keep him safe. Mm-hmm. But he's also like, well, this needs an action sequence, and I have to make this hard on myself, so I guess I have to go through the garden maze.
There has to be a garden maze. It can't be too easy. There has to be like these very loud, I guess because he is still a fiction writer, and he's like, this is a book that I've got to put out. Mm-hmm. It has to be exciting. Yeah, it's just so like Silent
Hill. This is not.
No, absolutely
definitely not.
No.
It's I want to say it's parody. I don't really want to say that it's tongue in cheek.
Yeah, tongue in cheek is a little bit more gentle than parody. Yeah. I think, where it's very self-aware.
Self-aware is the best like neutral way I can say it, I think.
Yeah.
Just kind of like nudging a little bit.
Sure.
Like it's giving you a little nudge every so often. It's not, it's not saying like, haha, this is so wacky.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, at least they don't waste my time with being like, wow, this is so crazy.
Like,
like the thing I hate the most.
Alan's, Barry's never like, this is just like a weird horror movie.
Right. They do, that's not true, though. They do reference The Shining, like, way too many times. I get, though, that like, that's the joke, is, of course, like, it's Stephen King references. Yeah, duh.
I did like Agent Nightingale pulling out a different writer every single time.
He calls him Hemingway and Dan Brown and H.P. Lovecraft. And I was just like, yes, this owns.
I'm just imagining like Nightingale like in his motel room, like pulling up Wikipedia list of fiction authors and just like writing them all down.
List of horror/thriller authors. Yeah. Does he ever call him? He doesn't actually ever call him Stephen King, though.
Yeah, he does.
He does. He does. He totally does.
It's the first name he uses.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, this game is just like, Stephen King, the Stephen King game by Stephen King.
That's okay. So you know what that reminds me? That is one thing we need to talk about. Sure. Is boy, this game made me want to go out and buy some Energizer batteries.
There's Energizer batteries. There's a billboard for Verizon Wireless.
Yeah.
What else?
References to all the movies, like The Shining, like all those books and stuff.
There's so many. It's absurd. There's a lot of like visual. There's like the literal visual callback of like the axe head coming through the wall.
Yeah.
And it's just like.
It is funny because like one of the things I did like though is that like normally when you get stuff like this, it's because like, okay, we can't use it, so they drink Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. And they go to MacDougal's, right?
Yeah.
But it is nice that like The Shining exists in this world.
Sure, yeah, of course.
They have a parody of the Twilight Zone, but like you could ostensibly say the Twilight Zone does exist in this universe, and it's just
like a knockoff.
Yeah, this is just a bad knockoff version, low budget knockoff version of it.
Yeah.
It's nice to see, obviously it is all like, product placement, advertising. Like literally you can look it up and it's like Energizer gave them a bunch of money to put their batteries in the game.
Right.
And that's why they're not in any of the other games, is because they didn't get the license for that. They didn't get the
sponsorship again. Yeah.
But it's just like, it is nice to see like this is set in the real world.
Yeah, and that was the thing I actually really liked about this game, was that it doesn't have the LA noir problem where there's a ton of like, okay, so like LA Noire, right? It has this huge recreation of 1950s Los Angeles, but like you don't actually go to any of it, basically. It's just there to flex, but like you don't interact with like a huge portion of the recreation of 1950s Los Angeles. Alan Wake is not as extensively that much, and that it's helped along by like that episodic structure. But there are little nooks and crannies and stuff you can go explore. You can go find extra ammo and batteries and stuff like that. And it does this really good job of just feeling incredibly, like, really lived in. Like, all of Bright Falls? Excuse me. Why Bright Hollow? Anyways, all of Bright Falls feels very, like, cozy and lived in. Like, it feels and looks like a real place, and I really liked that. I don't know, it's very obvious that they took a lot of vacations to, they took a lot of fact-finding missions to the Pacific Northwest, which is fine.
There's just, like, little touches that I think really just help sell you on this being a location that you could go to, you know?
Right.
You know, extraneous details that don't amount to anything, but, like, it helps make it feel better. The landlord at the trailer park has a knee brace, and he walks with a limp. It's never explained. It doesn't amount for anything, but it's just a character quirk, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a person that exists.
Yeah, that's a people. That's a real people who, you know, you see people walk around with knee braces, and like the trailer park isn't too scummy, which is always like I appreciate, because living in a place that has like, there's scummy trailer parks, but it isn't like a total shithole the way you think a lot of other people seem to portray them as. It's just like a place where poor people live. Whoopsie doodle. And it all feels like nicely, not overdone. You don't feel like some poor bastard Team Bondi lovingly recreated a theater and it's never used ever. Everything, it just feels like these are little cute, like, dioramas. That's the feeling it gave me. Like little perfectly, like, assembled dioramas of the Pacific Northwest.
The things the characters wear, just the way they overall look. I appreciate there's a lot of old people in this game. There's a lot of old people
because it's a small town, and these kind of small towns have a lot of
you retire, you go up north, you get a cabin in Washington in this small town, and then you go to the diner, and then you listen to the radio at night, and that's your day.
Sit around and smoke and eat pie all the time.
Yeah.
And then also, like, you know, like all the young people tend to move away from small tiny places like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, you end up with a population of mostly old people. And it's nobody is terribly glamorous, which I like. Nobody's that hot. Again, that's kind of helped along by the fact that the facial renderings are very strange. But it works. It all kind of gels.
Yeah, like even Alan and Alice are like conventionally attractive, but they're not like super glamorous, and you know, he's a writer, and he's probably looks good because he's rich and he lives in New York.
Yeah, he's got a
I hate his fucking apartment though. God damn it.
No fucking. All right, Remedy. We do need to have a conversation. Roll that back real fast.
I fucking like. So you get that first walk around section where it's like the flashback where he comes home from the rain, and you know, and you're walking around, and you know, she's like, you know, you get a chance to like see like the living room and the kitchen and you know, the office and all that, and then, you know, it's like, okay, well, this is great. And then the power goes out and that cutscene plays where they're on the couch, you know. And the camera pans out and you see it's an apartment, and I was like, fuck you, Alan.
Fuck you.
I was like, this is a pretty nice looking house that Alan gets to have. Like, good for him. Then it pans out and it's a goddamn apartment in New York.
Yeah, it's an apartment in New York City. You must be one of the most absurdly well-selling authors of all time, motherfucker. For you to be living in an apartment like that, it has by my estimation So, like, a massive living room, huge kitchen, 2 office spaces. Both of those spaces are nowhere near big enough to be bedrooms, so they are just offices in this house. Probably 2 bedrooms and at least 2 bathrooms. No, I'm sorry. You must be moving literally millions of copies of books a year for you to be able to afford that. That's the only thing I could possibly... And he hasn't put a book out in 3 years.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is that, like, I am having a hard time gauging, like, his actual popularity.
He must be wildly I mean, especially if, like, randos recognize him in a... Like, a random girl recognizes him in a diner. 2 randos, 3 randos, maybe? Recognize him, like... I don't know if I could tell you if Stephen King walked into, like... a diner tomorrow. I don't know if I would notice, because, I mean, he just looks like a schlubby dad with, like, a weird mouth. Sorry, Stephen King, it's true.
Sorry, Stephen King, you do look like a Who from The Grinch.
Oh my god. No, sorry, we have to stop this conversation. Stephen King. He does! This is a mean question. This can't be our clip. I'm sorry. This is a mean question. I've got to ask a mean question right now.
What?
And it cannot be the clip that we put on Twitter. You've got to find a better one. Do you think Stephen King's nose looks like that because he did so much cocaine in the 80s?
Probably. I mean, I'm sure that had something to do with it.
So mean. I'm sorry. It's true.
I mean, it's... We aren't stating anything that's not true.
Yeah.
He did
Stephen
do a lot
King
of
himself,
cocaine in the 80s.
There's a reason it is like that, okay? It's because Stephen King did a lot of coke in the 80s. That's why it's 25,000 pages long and is completely fucking insane.
That's why the movie had to cut out so much.
Oh my god. No book that big was written on anything other than just copious amounts of uppers. That's all I'm saying. I
just think about that clip where it was Stephen King and George R.R. Martin talking about like, you know, their writing process, and Stephen King is like, I just write every single day.
He just writes every single day. And, yeah, George.
And George is like, what do you do when you hit writer's block? And he's like, I don't.
He does a lot of cocaine about it and solves the problem.
The chat Stephen King versus the virgin George R.R. Martin.
George, maybe you should let Stephen King ghostwrite The Winds of Winter. Or whichever one it is. Shit, I think it's Winds of... I don't care. Like, we got off topic. Yeah, fuck Alan Wake at his fancy apartment.
Yeah, the point is that, like, yeah, it's hard to gauge, like, is he supposed to be, like, on that level of, like...
Right.
The absolute king of the thrillers?
I guess.
And, I mean, you know, but I guess it is nice that, like, he chooses to vacation in, like, a small town in Washington then.
Sure, you know, it's very interesting. Alan is, well, Alan and Alice are just, like, they are primarily vehicles for me to enjoy, some spooky atmosphere
they don't...
and set pieces. They are such, like, in the grand scheme of things, such total non-characters. Mm-hmm. I did put in my list... though, like in my notes, I don't take a lot of notes when I play video games because I'm too busy playing the video game. Mm-hmm. The one thing I had to put in my notes, I have 3 things. One is Barry is the best, but the second thing is, we'll do the third thing in just a second. The second thing is, Alan's voice actor probably could have gotten drunk in the booth and sounded more legit than when he was drunk in the video game.
Oh yeah, it was not great. He didn't
extremely bad.
He didn't do a very good job of slurring his words.
Yeah,
properly, like a real drunk person.
Yeah, it's like, have you ever been drunk in your life? Have you ever listened to yourself talk after a couple? Like, that's not how people slur their words, my man. it just stood out to me so hard that I had to write it down. I was like, this is
not great.
Just do a couple shots before the take, dude. Like that will get you the authentic slurring of your words. Or
do what Ben Schwartz did when he had to do the scene in Rise where Leo goes to the bakery when he's sick.
Oh?
Which is only read the script twice and then wing it.
Yes! Ah, excellent! I'm so glad you've told me this now. We somehow managed to fit a Rise of the TMNT reference into our Alan Wake podcast. Hell yeah. We're gonna, rest of the year, that's the goal, is to just keep sneaking references to Rise into every episode.
This is where I'm going to edit in an air horn. Rise reference for the episode!
But the other thing that's in my notes, and I wanted to bring it up because I thought it was really funny, was the moment someone said, "Oh yeah, she lives in the old decommissioned power plant." And I went, "Oh, come on, game."
Yeah, that one, okay, that one was like, are you kidding me?
She just lives in an old power plant? You can't do that, ma'am. Which I know, like, that kind of seems like maybe a little too CinemaSins adjacent. You know, like a ding should go here or something. But, in my defense, when I heard it, I thought it sounded insane. And it was just like, oh, you are just setting up incredibly unsubtly, like a video game level, the power plant thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could have tried a little harder. I mean, I respect it at the same time, but, yeah. It was just, it had to go in the notes as well because it was so bizarre. But I did like that whole sequence leading up to that. I like the whole weirdness of the writing changing reality.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that whole setup of Thomas Zane, writing part of Alan's backstory to include the clicker. I really liked that. I don't know. It was so. It was such like an
It sets up an interesting. Like, did you get the manuscript page, which was just the recursive scene of Alan, reading the page?
No.
There's one where it's like, I read the page about me reading the page, which said I read the page about me reading the page, which said
that's good.
And it's just that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Or the one, I think it's right in the prison where it's about Nightingale taking a shot of his flask because he reads about himself taking a shot of his flask.
Yes, I did get that one. Yeah, that's good.
I love, that's what really drew, like, when I got to those bits, like, those are the highlights to me.
Yeah.
Of that whole idea of writing your own story, which means, like, how much of it, because I was reading about this game afterwards, and there's the implication that Alan invented Zane in the first place.
Ooh.
Like, it's not quite, like, because if you think about it, like, you know, Zane was this old writer who went through this before, and then left quote unquote, flung a light into the future, to prevent this from ever happening again. Mm-hmm. And he also has a bit where he writes a story about Alan into existence, right?
Right.
But that would mean that either he wrote Alan into existence in the first place,
right,
or Alan invented Zane to help him later on, and recursively, like, wrote that whole angle into being.
That's actually really interesting if you think about it too, because one of the angles of Zane's backstory is that he wrote himself out of existence, which is awfully convenient for why nobody in town remembers or who thinks Thomas Zane is just a like an urban legend. Like, nobody seems to remember him, which is incredibly convenient for the sake of the story, for Alan in particular, you know? So it's like, oh yeah, no, that actually kind of tracks. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you just kind of have to sit back and think about for a second, and you wonder, like, how much of anything, you know,
who set up what?
Yeah, like how much of anything was predetermined by being written down versus how much, like, free will do they actually have to navigate things.
Yeah, like how much free will do any of the characters in this story even seem to have?
And it led to an interesting thought experiment of mine, which would be like it's something that's like a hypothetical, like, it would be cool to set this up, which is the idea of, like, because you pick up pages of the manuscript, right? And you can't get them all on a normal playthrough. You have to play, like, hard mode to get some of them, right? And ostensibly the idea is that Alan is just kind of filling in the gaps between pages on his own, right?
Right.
It would be cool to set up a thing where someone writes every other page of a story, and then you get another author who has to connect all those gaps.
That would be interesting. That's actually maybe not so much like an exact page, but you tell someone to write 1,000 words and then skip 1,000 words and, like, leave that intentionally blank and then write another 1,000 words and see what happens.
Yeah.
Huh. That actually sounds kind of neat. I wonder what, like, that's a very... You wonder what that would look like.
Right, yeah.
Huh. Yeah, no, and that is kind of like the implication of what's going on here. I like that. I think that sounds really cool.
I really like that the manuscript pages give you glimpses of the future, too. You aren't just picking up the stuff that, like, you've already done.
Yeah, right. Like, it's not like a novelized version. It's stuff that is going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's really, really cool. It's like you pick up a page and you're like, wait, what? And then that happens, like, 10 minutes later.
Honestly, like, one of my favorite little teeny tiny moments in the story is when Nightingale has the three of them in the jail, and he's got the gun on them. And he says something, and then he goes, where have I heard that before? And then he realizes he's saying what was in the manuscript.
Yeah.
And that's what lets the darkness get him. I don't know. That's such a good little, it's such like a good little, like a little micro horror moment all on its own, where you're like, wait, do I have any free will, or am I just, like, following a really fucked up script? It's just a little tiny moment that just sticks in your craw and you keep thinking about it.
It really is super Twilight Zone-ish in that regard.
Yeah, it's very Twilight Zone-y. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that could totally be... And in fact, that is actually a Night Springs episode.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get the one where it's the two old ladies find the hole? The hole in existence? Did you get that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the author's like, I honestly didn't know where I was going with this one, so you might as well go upstairs while I figure it out. And they're like...
While I try to figure out the rest of the plot, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Right. Oh, man. Yeah, no, it's such a... I think a big part of Remedy's... And this is why I really would like to, after having done this, I really want to do Control now. A big part of Remedy's kind of storytelling / design philosophy seems to be, like, kind of smaller worlds, but using tons of additional content in the game and outside of the game to backfill in and kind of, and not like in like a, like reading... And not like reading like a glossary kind of thing, but more so giving little nibbles of extra thematic content just in different ways. It's almost like a video game as collage.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like a scrapbook, but it's a video game. And they just took a little piece of a thing they think is interesting here, and a thing they think is interesting here, and then they all just kind of, it's all bound together in the framework of a video game. But there's live action stuff. There's web series. Apparently, all of these can just be watched. I mean, obviously, because like in the age of YouTube, but all of the the Night Springs episodes can also just, like, were released separately as well. Like, you could just watch them, which I need to go do.
Yeah, there's, like, the bonus content, the post-game stuff.
Yeah.
The DLC.
And then they, like, it's like mixed media. There's written elements, there's live action elements. It's stuff that's actually in, like, the physical design of the world. And it isn't just, like... It isn't in the way of like, the way Fallout 4 has terminal entries. It's
right.
not like that. It's more so there's tons of different little elements, but they're all still self-contained within the game itself.
It's kind of like Alan Wake is kind of set up more as, like, a media experience than just a video game, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting.
Not to the extent of something like, I would say, like, Homestuck is not just a webcomic, it's a whole thing.
Whole situation.
Yeah, but Alan Wake has all these elements in it, but they are self-contained in the game, but they're not video game elements.
Right.
So that just makes it more of, like, a collective sort of media thing, which makes sense because it's a story about writing a story.
Yeah, it's a story about specifically writing books. And so, but it's a video game about writing books, and there's, you know, television elements as well. And I just think I think it's very neat. I think it just kind of creates these very interesting, because they did it too, to a slightly lesser degree, but they did still do it. I mean, Remedy made the first 2 Max Paynes.
Yeah.
And Max Payne has, like, comic book sequences and stuff in it. So, like, this is a concept they have been fiddling with basically since their creation. I actually just pulled it up. Like, Quantum Break is like that too. They made Quantum Break, and it's like a weird thing. And it's just, you know, you see, it's like their aesthetic.
You see a lot of, like, you know, we talk a lot about we talk about it with under our breath of cinematic gameplay, right?
Sure.
Like, you know, games that are trying to be movies and etc. And the thing about Alan Wake to me
is that it's not trying to be a movie.
Yeah, it's not. It just is. They just use actors, and they filmed the thing on film with live action people, and they put it in the game.
But that is actually really interesting to think, is that Alan Wake is very much a kind of game where, so, like, people don't really like walking simulators. They're kind of gauche these days, and I've always liked walking simulators, because even though there aren't any gameplay elements involved, the act of playing it and exploring these little pieces on your own time is something you can only do in a video game. It's not like a book. You're still being led around like in a book with its pacing. And in that way, Alan Wake is kind of like that too. Obviously, it's not a walking sim, but it's very much like, it's not trying to be a movie. It's like, this is still a thing that can kind of only be told in a video game. Like, I don't think it would work as well as a movie, because part of it is that you're supposed to just kind of be in the atmosphere. You're supposed to kind of hang out in the woods and be a little spooked by them, and fumble with your flashlight and your gun and all these little things that kind of create tension that wouldn't work as a TV show or as a movie or even as a book. God, I cannot imagine what this book would look like.
Yeah, it's so weird that, like, in the sense of, like, this is a game about an author writing a book, and books play heavily into the fiction of it. You can't really imagine this as, like, an actual novelization.
Yeah, it would be very incredibly, like, weird and recursive.
Yeah.
That one page, just ad nauseum. Yeah, I think it's, I'm not like, the more I think about it, the more I like it, I guess is the thing, is that it kind of turns, that's what the Gorge is for, baby. Right. To talk ourselves into liking something more than we realized.
There is one thing I did want to talk about, because you mentioned, like, the atmospheric part of it. There's something that this game does super, super well, and it, like, it's something that strikes out to me super strongly in this, because it's not a horror game. It's it's supposed to be kind of spooky and unsettling, but it's not Silent Hill or Resident Evil or anything, or like an Amnesia or anything like that. But when you're in the woods, there are so many assets that kind of look like people.
Yes. Oh my god. Yes.
And
yes, it's
sometimes
so good.
They actually are. Like sometimes an enemy can load in ahead of time and you see them kind of darting around in the distance.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a shrub.
That is actually something that like this game does extremely well, and it's something I would really like to see now that we're going into the next gen. We're going into PS5 and Series X. Something you could do really, really well with a ton of processing power is just like messing with people's heads in dense forest, because that's part of it, is that like small trees kind of look like people sometimes.
Yeah.
They have you can kind of trick yourself.
With more modern games like that, you can mess with arbitrary draw distances like that and load in stuff that just kind of like appears for a moment in the background and then it despawns and then it reappears later once you get closer.
And you're like, "Oh shit, that is a person." Yeah, no. And the forests in Alan Wake are they're so dense and, like you said, so detailed, and they have so many assets that it actually does feel kind of like if you've ever been like in really, really deep forests, like the for real. I'm not talking about your like hiking trail in your local state park.
Right.
I'm talking about like deep ass forest. Like you feel kind of smothered by it. It's like there's just trees fucking everywhere. And it's very unnerving because you're just like, oh boy, nobody would hear me out here because these trees would absorb all of that sound. I'd just be boned, and nobody would be able to see you from the air because of all the trees. It's eerie, and I actually kind of get that across. And then I also saw that they had a plaque on one of the trees that called it the Great Old One, and I was like, I see you, Remedy. I see you.
What makes a forest especially terrifying is that everything is obscured, right? But you have no cover.
Oh yeah.
Like
there's nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
You still can't hide. Like once somebody sees you, they're gonna see you.
There's nowhere you can put your back to. And yet at the same time, there's so many trees and foliage that anyone could be hiding behind anything.
Yeah, so it's an interesting dynamic. It's very good.
Which leads me to say that I do think the gameplay, like mechanic, the gimmick, is super great. And also really annoying sometimes.
My thing is, and I was thinking about this. My question to you is, do you think it would have been better if you just didn't have a gun?
No. No, I think having to break the shield and then shoot them does a good job of rebalancing the fact that as a quote-unquote horror game, you're supposed to feel pretty defenseless.
Right.
Adding that extra layer of, no, you can't actually fight back until you wear them down. But also, we're going to give you a ton of ammo constantly all the time.
Yeah, tons of ammo, tons of flashlight batteries.
The thing that I will say in its favor that I think would have made this game so much worse if they didn't do this, which is, for one thing, you always have the gun available, you always have the flashlight available. You don't swap between them. You know, you won't like flashlight mode and then switch to gun mode.
Right. Yeah.
The flashlight also just wears down enemies without you being focused on them. Batteries will recharge. You don't have to just like you use batteries to instantly refill the gauge. It'll recharge on its own no matter what. But to me, the biggest thing about it is, boy, is that auto aim generous.
That auto aim is extremely generous. Thank you, guys.
That would have sucked.
Very kind of you.
If you had to do like an RE4, like go into aiming mode to shoot the gun.
Yeah.
No,
because it's not that kind of game. Like you don't need to have like precision aim in your fucking survival horror game.
The flashlight's your reticle, and it is a wide reticle.
Yes, thank you.
That makes the gameplay feel super smooth. You know, obviously, it's This is so bad.
Oh no.
DMC and Kingdom Hearts and all these action games that you and I both love have given me brain poison.
Why do I have to aim?
Which is the dodge in Alan Wake is not it's designed It's designed.
It's a character action game, not a dodge.
You're designed to get away from an enemy. You're not supposed to time it to get a perfect parry going. This isn't fucking Ghost of Tsushima here.
You're not trying to do an Alan Wake combo, mad.
Yeah, no. It's designed to make you scramble in a direction, and you get sometimes you get a slow motion thing which allows you to catch your bearings, but there's no reason to let an enemy get close and perfect dodge them ever. But me,
if an enemy has got, that's just a way to save your ass if you accidentally let an enemy get too close.
But me, my fucking oh okay, I can do this to get the timing right, and then I can strike them down to break their guard. No, dumbass, get away.
RE3 gave you perfect dodge brain poison. It made you realize this game the first thing you think, because you do have spiders in your skull, is like witch time, like Bayonetta witch time. Yeah, for sure. I got this. Yeah, sure. This is good.
Fucking Alan just does a backflip and the game goes into hyper slow motion.
He's suddenly a fucking style meter pops up, smoking spooky style.
It's no, dumbass, no, it's a horror game.
It's just they're giving you a break to get away from them faster, idiot.
Get away, shine your flashlight, and shoot them. This isn't this kind of game, idiot.
It's not that complicated, Ben. We're both just but it could be that complicated. Because we're idiots who are well, every game can be improved by being more like Devil May Cry. I still stand by that, though.
It's literally like what we were talking about when we were doing the Van Helsing takeout. Where we're just the idea of a game that's played pretty normally, but you have one thing that makes it a character action game.
That technically makes it a character action game. In this case, just going off of that logic, Alan Wake's Witch Time does make this a character action game.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm gonna stand by that one. Because the character action game genre is in and of itself so fucking what is a character action game? It's a fake genre. I'm going to make the executive decision that this makes Alan Wake a character action game. You're welcome.
You do get a slowdown when you dodge just right, so that's what makes it count.
Yeah, that's Twitch-based gameplay right there. Reaction times are everything, baby.
But no, they did a good job of balancing the helplessness, but also not making it super inconvenient to actually fight enemies, because you do have to fight a lot.
Yeah. It is I do think it's kind of weird the degree that you have to fight in this game, but I guess they were we developed a combat system. By God, we're gonna use it.
It is a lot like
Deadly Premonition.
Yeah, Deadly Premonition, where it's we have to slap in these action sequences between the rest of the game, which is the part we actually want to write.
Yeah, I just I wonder, I don't know if the game would be better without them. They might be better without them, but then I don't know. Then I just feel there wouldn't be any tension. There wouldn't it's such be a predetermined story already.
Yeah, there wouldn't be enough to do if you were just if the enemy encounters were lessened.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you would fill it with. Just more puzzles or.
Yeah, it's just ideally in my head, because again, Silent Hill. I would like more puzzles just in general. But I don't know. It's just that the combat system itself does feel so tacked on. It's functional. It's not a broken, shitty combat system. It's not unpleasant to play. But it is, like you said, super obvious that this is not the part of the game they wanted to make.
Right, yeah.
They were we want to make a small Pacific Northwest town, and we're going to tell this story about a writer, and there's going to be all kinds of neat little things in it. Oh, right, we got to add a combat system.
Like, now that being said, like, I think a lot of the mechanics they do include, especially based around, like, the light and darkness thing, are really interesting.
Yeah.
I like because it's the old Valve thing where it's like, use a light source to guide players where they need to go, and this is like that to the extreme, Right, yeah. You are given tons of waypoints in the distance that's like, oh yeah, get to the radio tower. How do you know where it is? It's the thing it's the big tower that's blinking.
It's got tons of fucking lights on it, and, like, the game is explicitly about how you need light to move forward. Otherwise, like, all the shadows and stuff will eat you alive. Yeah, it's definitely that design philosophy just on coke. It's interesting.
The mechanic of your waypoints are traffic lights and the lamps and stuff overhanging that sometimes just go out when you get close to them, and then you go, oh fuck.
Oh no. No, I gotta keep going.
Enemy encounters vanish when you're standing in light,
There are no enemy encounters during the day.
I think that's just really interesting. It's a good thematic element, and it ties well into...
Makes it Kingdom Hearts.
A little bit, yes.
Talking about darkness and light and balancing it. And I'm sitting here like, this is Kingdom Hearts.
There's a bit where it's like, this character's heart was filled with darkness, and I'm like, wow, okay. That's just the actual line of dialogue you're gonna go with.
You're just gonna say that exact line of dialogue from a Kingdom Hearts, okay?
The main villain's heart got ripped out.
Tore the heart out. She's heartless now. Okay.
But I think they tie it into gameplay really well, and it's tied to the thematic elements, and it's just that's part of it is very solid writing.
I think maybe my problem with it, now that I've ruminated on it more, is that I just think there are too many combat encounters.
Some of them go on for too long, and I feel like some of the enemies are a bit too strong for what you want to do.
There are parts of this game that, like, really overstay its welcome, and it's like, I feel like this should have ended 5 or 10 minutes ago. And I mean, like, that's not a game breaking thing. Obviously, I think we've been pretty glowing in our review of this.
Glowing.
I'm funny. We're funny. In our review of this like, 8 out of 10 kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's just like, all right, I would like to be past this. I would like to go back to the fun the explory bits and the story part that I care about.
I make an exception for that, which is when you do that fucking stand your ground on the stage at the farm.
Listen, that part owns, and anybody who says otherwise is dead inside.
That part was fucking rad as hell. Shut up.
That's the best part ever, because you do it and you're like, this is stupid, and then you're like, never mind, this is cool. And then you like get the plot twist where it's like, oh yeah, Alan wrote all of this, so he was just like, he was in like a fugue state where he's like he's in a fugue state where he's writing this novel to ostensibly bring his wife back from the dead, and in the middle of all of that, he's like, I gotta write a sequence where me and my best friend fight a bunch of zombies while a rock song plays, and there's fireworks and a lightning bolt strikes an animatronic dragon, and it's the coolest shit ever. And it's like, Alan, didn't you have anything better to, like, weren't there more important things going on at that time? No,
this is necessary.
This is absolutely vital to the quality of my novel.
Again, Tor and Odin are the fucking best characters, I swear.
It's the best. Squeaking that little squeaky hammer while they're in the hospice place.
Yeah.
It's great. Oh man.
Their song kicks ass. Like all the
music in this game is really good, by the way.
Yeah, super good. Like every ending, like, end of episode, like thing is rad as hell. All those songs are great.
Every song in this game is like really, really solid.
They end their fucking game with Major Tom.
Yes, they do, which is Oh, okay. Hey, let's talk about one more thing. We're hitting the hour mark, which I think was pretty good for this. One more thing before we go, though. Hey, I think that ending sucks.
Really?
I guess I should say, I think it kind of sucks to be like... I think the whole it's not a lake, it's an ocean thing is one, I don't really get it, which maybe is just me, and I might just be stupid, but also the whole implication, be like, oh no, it's not the end, which I mean, obviously they were planning for a sequel.
Yeah, Alan Wake will return in Avengers.
Oops, and then there wasn't one, and apparently the DLC and American Wasteland are not sequels. They're
American Nightmare, not American Wasteland is Tony Hawk's story.
Oh. Whatever, I like this one way more. The sequel to Alan Wake is a skating game where he's doing sick tricks off of all the old vans in the harbor.
Alan Wake American Wasteland is AWAW.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm a genius.
I mean, I don't know, maybe the Control DLC fixes it.
I don't know. Oh, yeah, AWE. Doesn't that stand? It's like Alan Wake Experience.
Yeah, that's what it stands for.
Oh, fuck.
I know.
Now we really do have to play Control, because I would like to get... I don't know, I just feel like it was such a... One, it kind of happened too quickly. It was like, this game's just over. Okay.
That last encounter was like nothing.
It was like nothing.
It was just like you shoot it a few times with the flare gun and then it's over.
And then like, there's like from the end of that combat encounter to like the end of the game is like a couple minutes, maybe, and you don't even really get to see like what's going on with anyone else. I don't know. It just felt so abrupt. It's like they just ran out of ideas, and they were like, "Well, Alan stays in the darkness," which is a thing. One, Aqua, Kingdom Hearts. You're welcome. But I don't know, it just that felt like such an out of... Maybe I missed something, but it kind of felt like...
No, I think like...
It felt like that kind of came out of nowhere.
I know that the two alternate chapters in American Nightmare are post-game, so like they help fill in the gaps of what happened next.
Okay.
And I don't know anything about the Control DLC, because I don't know anything about Control.
Right, other than it's kind of weird.
But advertising it as like the Alan Wake thing, like it's straight up called the Alan Wake Experience.
Yeah. Tells
me like this isn't just like, oh, there's a document that mentions Bright Falls. Like this is like they're gonna go into a thing about this.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see where that leads to. I don't know whether I feel like actually playing the DLC or if I want to jump straight to doing Control, but like...
I know, right?
I do know the DLC or the two extra chapters, one of the two, are based less on Stephen King style horror and are based more on Tarantino Grindhouse.
Huh.
Yeah, because I think they focused more on Alan's time as a script writer than as a novel writer. Because remember, he did write episodes of Night Springs.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe go into Control, having played everything else. I don't know. I'm very curious to. I don't know. I guess I just wanted more resolution than what I got.
I feel like, the ending we got is one that is kind of generic.
Yeah.
It's, he has to stay behind now. That kind of thing that I got sick of when Mass Effect 3 did it and ruined that version of that story forever.
Yeah,
for me.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's part of it. It just kind of, it happens really quickly, and it's there isn't, when you do kind of an ending like that, I feel like you don't get enough resolution. There isn't even really, he doesn't even really talk to Alice.
Yeah, he doesn't get like a final farewell with her.
Yeah, which makes her even more of a nothing character.
Right, yeah.
She just kind of is just, she's just like the supportive wife kind of character, and it's like, okay, but we could get more.
Yeah, you really could have just made this about there's a dark presence that's going around and turning people into monsters, and Alan, like, the FBI thinks Alan is responsible for it, and he's trying to clear his name and stop this horror because it's threatening to destroy him and the whole town.
It's
and,
like literally, it's just, well, he goes to the town to write his new novel.
Yeah. Or he goes there to not write his new novel and he wants a vacation because that's the whole premise of his character is he doesn't want to write anymore and he's forced to write, and that's part of the whole thing behind it. Yeah.
You don't, like, I don't know. I've seen, like, I get, like, the metaphorical reason that Alice exists is that she's the only character who isn't forcing him to write.
Yeah, like even Barry
who just wants him to write for his own sanity.
Yeah.
But, like, as it stands, even, like, the sheriff feels more like a fleshed out character than Alice.
Right. It's
even with her not great voice acting.
Which I hate saying because, again, it's a female character in a video game, and
I know
it sucks when you have to be like, this character sucks and is not well written and doesn't really matter.
But it's like, it's a female character in a video game, but isn't that's kind of the thing, is that it's such an old-fashioned, like, movie trope. And sure, you could say that was intentional, but there are certain intentional character tropes that maybe we can just do away with,
right?
And instead of, like, being like, nudging in the ribs, like, hey, see, we get it, we're meta.
This is, I'm gonna say something that is too harsh for Alan Wake.
Sure.
But I'm gonna say it. Alice reminded me of Kara from Detroit.
Oh, she did, yeah.
In that she is just completely superfluous to the plot.
Yeah.
And the pacing would almost be better if she just wasn't there.
Yeah, it's so, like, even the, like, establishing the whole, like, it feels like part of the entire reason that Alice exists is to just establish the clicker.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you can
establish that in 1,000 other ways.
And you could even still have Alice be in the game, be a character.
Sure.
It's just that she didn't go with him. It's the kidnapping part is the superfluous part to me.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't matter. You could have just been like, I don't want to be like they're broken up or they're estranged, but it's like Alan needed to get away for a weekend and he went by himself, and she's fine with it. Maybe they have a few phone conversations, etc. She's in the flashback supporting him, that kind of thing. But he goes through this thing where he's kind of stuck trying to prevent a horrible catastrophe.
Right.
And she doesn't need to be kidnapped to give him, like, a personal reason for it,
Yeah, like, to give him a dog in the fight, basically. Because the fact that this is just, like, well, there's, like, a horrible darkness entity eating the town that he is currently trying to be in. I feel like that is actually motivation enough.
The stakes were too high, basically.
Yeah.
Like, once you establish it, like, this thing is going to devour the town, the kidnapping angle doesn't really hit as hard anymore.
Yeah, and it's like, she's just such just kind of a nothing character. And you're just like, we could have just kind of done without it. Anytime we have to do flashbacks with Alice, it just feels like it's kind of slowing things down. I don't know. Like, a lot of these characters are kind of paper thin to begin with, but because Alice exists only in flashbacks and not in any kind of real gameplay sequence except for one where you're, like, walking around the house, it just feels like anytime she shows up, the pacing grinds to a halt, whereas all these other paper thin characters exist in the context of, like, the video game is happening around it.
And there are a lot of these one-note characters are great because of their one-noteness, and again, because it's because Alan was writing them into existence. Like,
under duress.
Nightingale is one of my favorite characters because he's just so nothing.
He's such an asshole for no reason.
All he is he's just like fucking Inspector Javert. Like, just fucking like...
He's He's just chasing Alan to chase Alan.
Yeah, he's
that's it.
He believes in some kind of weird conspiracy from the manuscript.
Yes.
And he's just like, he opens fire at the radio station, and the DJ gives him that huge chewing out if you pick up that one manuscript.
Yeah.
It's great, and he's just like this dumbass drunkard
who just has like a laundry list of author names to call Alan by at any given time.
And he annoys everyone that he talks to, like Sheriff Breaker hates him.
Yeah, he's rude and shitty, and she's like, I would like to talk to your superior, and he's like, no, and he just says like, no. Okay, you can just do that? Alright. It's great. He sucks, but it's like a fun kind of sucking character, you know?
I did like the DJ. He was great.
DJ is great. He just seems like a nice old man.
Yeah.
Like I said, Barry is the best
Barry's
character
awesome.
in the game. I love the running joke of him being like, your cutout is okay, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's my favorite running joke in the game by far is when they like crash the truck and he's like, don't worry, the cutout is fine. I love that joke. The part where he's talking to the cutout of Alan while like Alan is doing like puzzle shit.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm Alan, I'm so good looking, I don't need to, I can just be all stoic and women love me. I just thought it was great. The only time Alan has any kind of like likable personality is when he's interacting with Barry, because he's like, do you want me to do my impression of you, Barry? He's like, no. It's great. It was great. Make a buddy cop. Make this game just like a buddy cop horror story.
Because I think it's one of those things where, like, to me, the best way you can do a straight man, a funny man, straight man kind of thing, is when every so often the straight man does play along.
Yeah, absolutely. Where he actually cracks jokes too, and it's like, it was just at any time, even like we said, Breaker has a not great voice actor, but she has some personality because she has this dumb code word thing with her friends, and she's like, yeah, we named it after the TV show. I love stuff like that. It's like, oh, those are like little character building moments. Alice is afraid of the dark, I guess.
Yeah, I can relate.
It's a weird thing for a grown woman to still be afraid of. Like, how do they, like, I'm overthinking this. I know this is my CinemaSins thing, but like, do you sleep with the lights off? Do they just sleep with? That's all I could think was in that sequence at the very end where they're in bed together. I was like, so do they have like a nightlight as grown-ups? Does Alan Wake have a nightlight in his bedroom because his wife is still afraid of the dark?
I mean,
as a woman in her 30s.
They live in New York, so I mean, like, she doesn't really need that. Probably everyone's lights are on, all day, every day. So
yeah, maybe that's why they live in New York.
Yeah.
Oh well, that is like my really shitty nitpicking thing, but those are like that's the dumb shit that pops into my head when I play video games sometimes, where I'm like, hold on a second. But I mean, like, it is in that way. It's so easy to be like, yeah, it's a small town in the Pacific Northwest full of quirky characters. It's like Twin Peaks, but like it's really obvious what they were referencing from. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, they were clearly like attempting to reference Twin Peaks in doing this very specific setting. It's just a weird hybrid of Stephen King novel tropes set in a Twin Peak.
And in that regard, like, I do appreciate them being a little bit more grounded about it than...
Sure, they're not as deeply weird as, like, Deadly Premonition characters.
Where, you have, like, actual cowboys hanging out in there.
Right.
Or, like, a weird old man who doesn't speak, but, like, his butler speaks in rhyme.
Right.
The most you get is Tor and Odin, who are just some weird old biker guys.
Who rule. This cannot be overstated. Yeah. Are extremely cool.
And who also are like, oh yeah, they completely fried their brains with acid back in the 70s. Like, they're like this because their brains were deep fried.
They just have scrambled eggs between their ears. That's it. And they're loving it, man. They're hanging out. They're drinking moonshine on their farm
that they brew with the magic poison lake water that turns that makes dreams into reality.
And they're making moonshine out of that shit. And no wonder they went crazy.
And it's like, why is it? Oh, that quirky old lady who is afraid of the dark and always needs to make sure all the light bulbs are plugged in correctly. Oh, that's because she's right.
She's right.
Okay.
She's just right. She's right to be weird about that. I did like that. I loved when, like, you're in the diner for the first time and you're kind of meeting all these characters, and she's like the one being like, "Oh, you'll hurt yourself in the dark, dear." And I'm like, that's a weird thing to be worrying about. That's a strange thing to point out. And then they bring her back at the end. I was like, oh, that's nice. Well done. Set-up and payoff. Extremely basic setup and payoff, but you still like it. You still get the good brain chemicals when you make the connection, you know? Mm-hmm. And isn't that what media is about, really, Ben? Is generating the good brain chemicals?
Yeah, it's making you go, oh yeah, that thing.
Yeah, that's all we ask. So. Also,
one final note before we go, though, is that...
Hell yeah.
Hey boy, all those names super on point, aren't they? we gotta mention just like how fucking every single character's name is just on point.
Breaker.
Alan Wake, he sleeps and it's a dream.
Alice, like Alice in Wonderland, she gets pulled into like a weird kind of thing.
Barry Wheeler, he drives things forward and he's a go-getter. You got, Nightingale.
Yeah, Nightingale is aggressive. Agent Nightingale.
The old lady.
That one feels like it's really obvious in retrospect that this novel Alan wrote was written in like a fugue state because he was just running out of characters' names. Right. What's the FBI agent's name? Nightingale, I fucking guess.
The old lady who remembers the past and has to tie it to the present. Her name is Cynthia Weaver.
Oh, yeah. It's all like that.
I mean, it's good to me. I like.
No, it's great. I love it when it's extremely on the nose that.
It reminds me of It's like one step below Phoenix Wright characters, and there's.
And you know how much we love Phoenix Wright characters.
To me, there's nothing better than how absolutely bullet point on the nose every character's name is in Phoenix Wright.
It's the highest form of good writing, okay?
My favorite thing in the world, and it's why I'm so glad they localized those games instead of just translating them, because we would have never gotten all of these fucking incredible names.
Sawit, Red, White. Sawit. Oh my god.
A lot of heart, Dick Gumshoe.
A lot of heart.
They're everywhere. It's the best.
It's incredible. It's astonishing. Maggie Bird, come on. More games should be like insanely on the nose with their character names. I like it. To me, that feels like the most Finnish aspect of the game. Like in a game that does have kind of like strange script writing, like the dialogue is just a little odd sometimes. To me, that's like the one that I just love. I genuinely love it. Like, I think I love Deadly Premonition. I really want to play Deadly Premonition 2, even though it runs like dog shit. I love it when foreign companies make small American towns. Very specifically, small American towns. Mm-hmm. Not like a big city, because that doesn't count. But when you have, like, any video game... Or really anything that is like, well, we've never actually lived in the United States, but we're gonna make a video game about a story set in a town in America with like a tiny amount of people. You just get, it's just so good. Everybody comes across as so kooky and weird. I'm like, man, I wish America was actually this cool.
Right? Yeah.
I wish it was actually this great to live here, but okay. I'm glad you guys have such a high opinion of our tiny, small towns.
The idea of a small town where everyone knows everyone is super friendly with each other doesn't exist anywhere except on TV.
Yeah, it's true. And like, even if it is a small town where like tons of people know each other, speaking as somebody who lives in a small town where tons of people know each other, they ain't friendly to each other.
Nope.
They'll be friendly to your face, and then they'll walk away, and they'll be like, that bitch Margaret. So yeah, all of this to say, Alan Wake is a strange little video game that I really, really, like, ultimately, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it and hashing it out with you, I'm like, I think I really liked Alan Wake.
I'm very glad it got to come back, not only because, like, you know, game preservation is important, but also because it is a really well-written story, and the world it crafts, and I'm glad that it's interesting, and I'm glad it gets to continue in some regard, and it's Remedy wrote this, and you know, I like their experimental take on stuff like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, experimental storytelling is usually reserved for the indie crowd, right? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
It is cool to see, like, a bigger publisher like this even do something as simple as, hey, we filmed some live action stuff. And, you know, we even did one where we got the face model for Alan himself is in one of these. And
yeah, to do an interview sequence.
Yeah.
And yeah, that all of those little touches, and it just feels so
you know what
it feels so unique.
I did learn is that even the bits where it's Alan in the cabin, talking to the TV, those are live action too.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that at first.
Yeah. Like I think anything on TV is live action.
That's like, so cool to me.
Very cool. It's a very cool little detail, because like I said, it's a smart delineation of the two kind of spaces. I like that kind of thing. So, yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I'm sitting here like, I think I really liked Alan Wake. I kind of, when we were starting, I was like, oh, it was okay. It was fine. And now I'm like, wait a second. No, I actually really like this video game. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think
highly recommend.
I think I've gone from, like, I don't know, maybe I'll play the DLC later to, like, I might start that up now.
Yeah, I really want to. The only problem is that I really want to play Hades.
Right, there's other stuff that's coming out soon.
There's other stuff that's come out and is coming out, and like, but it definitely made me want to play Control. I want to wait until PS5 for Control, because load times, like, I don't like load times. But it, like, for sure made me want to play Control, especially if it has that same, like, if Control has the same degree of little detail work all over the place, which I know it does, because I've seen enough of Control to know that it's basically like, what if we made an SCP game with, like, a huge budget?
Yeah.
Which is reason enough for me to play it. The Remedy explicitly has said they were inspired by like House of Leaves. So I have the brain disease called I spent my formative years on the paranormal board of 4chan, which means if someone references House of Leaves, I'm like,
I gotta do it.
Fine, here's my money, leave me alone. Get out of my house now. Fine, I'll play your stupid video game.
But only if it has good load times, which is why we're waiting.
But only if it has. I have to. I'm done. I'm done with these slow load times, man. I can't do it anymore. I'm so ready for this SSD. It's in less than a month now.
God. So yeah. Look forward to us when we finally get a chance to play Control. We'll come back to Al. Good old Al.
Good old Al and all his weird friends. So. Yeah. You got everything you wanted out of your system?
I think so, yeah. I think, for the most part, I got everything. Yep.
Right
on. So that'll do it for us. Thank you to Broke Free for background music. You can follow me on Twitter at thegorgepodcast. You can follow Sara at radioinactivity. And if you want to listen to Sara tell other stories in real time about her characters being in threatening situations, you can listen to her other podcast.
You are so much better at that than I am at the that's hell you're walking into intros. Hey, I'm in another podcast called Big Gay Nerds, where me and a bunch of cool queer friends get together and we play tabletop games. We rotate through different systems, and it's a whole lot of fun. We kind of sprung something because we had to take a break from masks just to kind of recharge those juices. Shouldn't have said it like that. But we were like, hey, what if we played Beam Saber? So we're playing Beam Saber right now, which is a Blades in the Dark hack, but instead of playing as cool thieves in the 1800s, we are mech pilots. It owns. It's so good. I love it. It's like the best. So you should come check it out. We're at Big Gay Nerds on SoundCloud, and you can find the links to the rest of our social media from there. Thanks.
All right, that'll do it for us. Man, you know what? I got one.
Oh, gimme.
Fuck the poltergeist enemies.
Yeah, no, I'm not a fan.
Suck.
I'm not a fan.
Those really, really suck because they take forever to kill, and they aren't stunned by the flashlight like every other enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to, like, wear them down and then dodge everything. And again, the dodging is not, like, a perfect dodge.
You're asking a lot of me, Alan Wake, the video game, the horror video game. You're asking me to be significantly better at this gameplay than I have been at any other part in this video game. So, fuck that shit.
Stop throwing tractors at me.
Where are all these tractors coming from anyways, game? It's a small harbor town. How are there so many tractors around? Alan, why did you write a bunch of tractors into this town in your fugue state?
He's like, small northern towns have tractors, right? There's just one in every corner.
Everybody just drives a tractor to the diner, don't they? And then it's like, Alan, you were at the diner. You saw people driving cars. He's like, nah, it's just tractors all the way down.
Sheriff Breaker drove her tractor. Her police tractor.
Her police tractor with blue lights on top.
To the trailer park. To the tractor trailer park.
Agent Nightingale rolled into the trailer park in his FBI tractor.
He lives in New York. All he does is take public transit. He doesn't know what a car is.
He doesn't even know what a tractor looks like. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.